and both of those intersections are very busy already. So I have a lot of concerns about how adding a high school which would have hours during rush hour, would or how that would impact that. And so I guess I really hope that's addressed before anything is passed. Additionally, I have 3 children, and there are neighbors that have young children, and they're outside playing. And in addition to just traffic in general, I'm concerned about teenage drivers going through our neighborhood, and what precautions would be taken to make sure that they're kept safe when they're outside playing, and that the drivers that are going through our street aren't going to race through there. There are already some drivers. If we've had the police department come out and put out a sign already this last summer, I believe it was, or fall, to monitor the speeds going through there. So teenagers are new drivers, and I just want to make sure that they're being safe when they go through our neighborhood. So just please keep those things in mind and make sure they're addressed before approving any rezoning process. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if anyone else wishes to speak, now would be the time to do so. Sorry.
Hello again. My name is Kevin Mehring. I'm 3158 Wachita Trail, Madison, Wisconsin. I'm in the Oregon School District. I was here at the last discussion on this topic. Just want to introduce myself for when it comes up on the agenda, if there's any additional questions. I'm one of the investors in the facility at Verona Athletic Center, as well as my business partner, who happens to be dressed the same way I am tonight. That was not planned. So one of us need to maybe take our sweater off. But I'm also a supporter of the high school. And I think all of you have the packet in terms of the traffic study that was done. I actually did much of the traffic study to help save on costs for the school. And I think you have details in terms of Jess's report on traffic and. But in general, available to answer any specific questions.
Thank you. We are still in public comment. Can you help us, Andy, on this?
Can you hear me? There we go. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Better. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. As Kevin had mentioned, Travis Kavinsky, I'm one of the other investors looking to buy the Verona Athletic Center. I'm a resident of Monona, 4011 Monona Drive, the Monona School District, lifelong resident of the Madison area, born and raised here. I, like Kevin, am in support of not only the Verona Athletic Center after doing the traffic study, which you all have. I think it's very apparent that the traffic issues aren't going to be of concern, but furthermore, one thing I do want to mention, myself and Kevin being not only local to the area, we are very much interested in participating in anything that we need to as investors in this building with the residents, not only local to the building, but also anywhere else that would like to make sure that we address any concerns that they have, but also make sure that they understand that we are going to be very active in making sure that there aren't any concerns and there aren't any issues, in addition to the things that we're being asked to do to control what we can control within the parking lot. Very much in favor of the school as well, and here to answer any questions that you all might have or anybody might have. So, thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if anyone else wishes to speak.
now it's green. Sorry. I live at 411, so I'm not directly across from where the school is, but I know that I put together what I thought should be the speed limit in general, and I sent it to the mayor and the planner and the gentleman who takes care of the traffic, just to say that as the area around the Prairie Heights Drive and Range Road continues to grow, the amount of traffic continues to increase. And from the increase in traffic, nothing's been done to really take a look at the speed limits that are out there. Directly across from the athletic center is the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. Coming into town from the south on M, the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit's across from the Meridian. So people have a tendency to try to get to that speed and don't slow down, which is, human nature. So the speed limits in that area are quite extreme. And my thought pattern would go that way because as Range Trail continues to grow, there's a turnoff there, and it's 45 miles an hour there. So what I thought was would be a compromise and plan would to reduce the speed limits in the area. So you're going south on M to Range Trail. Once you get right past Range Trail, it turns to 45. Coming in from Range Trail, it turns to 35. And that would slow everybody down, which when people turn, even though there's kind of a turn lane there, there would be less of a chance for any kind of rear-end accident at the times of day that they're busy. And then as far as a resident at the Glen and the weekend parking, I pointed out that the fact that there are some yellow lines where people don't need to park, but as the residents get aged and older, what happens is they don't look and they can't see when on a weekend. So I thought that the extension of the no parking in the yellow areas with a sign would be more than adequate to allow a better sight, view of sight. So, and that's what I did. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if anyone else wishes to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Hi, ma'am. My name is Dwayne Yan. I live in the Meridian building directly across. What is the maximum amount of people allowed in that building? Can anybody tell me what's the
Sorry.
capacity?
Yeah, with the public comment, it's not like a back and forth, but Mr. Sayers writing down your question, so he'll be able to comment on
And
that.
also, how many parking spaces are there? Is there actually adequate parking in the parking lot for 300-400 people? Which obviously could happen in a school like that if the numbers I heard at 100, 120 for the freshman and sophomore class starting out. Does that equate to going up to maybe 400 when the school is totally full? And probably half of those students will be driving. Also, has the Planning Commission thought about the amount of taxes being taken off the rolls when this becomes a school rather than a taxable property?
Thank you. We're still in public comment, so if anyone else wishes to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Dorothy Weiner, New Age Way. The athletic center is right in our backyard, and so we are concerned about the traffic. I was thinking I might see something here tonight. I know they're working on something about the traffic. Is that true? When will we see that?
It's as part of the packet, and then there'll be a presentation on it during the item topic. So it'll come up when the Plan Commission discusses it.
When, I'm having trouble hearing you because of the mask, probably.
It'll be when the Plan Commission addresses it. So when we get to the agenda item, we'll talk about it then.
I'm having trouble knowing exactly what it's going to look like because we don't have that kind of information. In fact, I only found out about it like at the last hearing, and we weren't able to be here. So it feels like it's moving so fast for us to have any input, and it's really difficult hearing. Because I don't know why, but I can't hardly hear anything. I should probably sit up here in front more. But how are we going to have any input into it? Or when do we get to? I know this, we can talk, but it doesn't seem like anybody can answer any questions. And it seems like we're just still trying to explore it, and it's moving fast. So I don't know what kind of questions to ask because I don't know who can answer them or where we can get information or even the agenda or, you know, the plan. Is the plan out for what the parking is going to be and the traffic flow? I mean, is the plan out that people can see? Other people are asking about it, but I didn't hear anything about, are we going to get anything to see, or is it just going to be voted on?
I'll kind of explain it during the agenda item, because we're not really supposed to have a back and forth during public comment. But I would note that the Plan Commission's only a recommendation, and that the City Council will be making a final decision next Monday, so there'll still be time.
Next Monday? But, so next Monday at this time?
7 p.m. is when the meeting starts. 7 p.m. is when the meeting starts?
Does it, I didn't hear what you said.
7 p.m.,
7 p.m.
yes.
Here?
Yes.
And will the public be able to speak? Will we get an agenda? Or where can we get an agenda?
This might be better to kind of discuss. Can you reach out to Mr. Sayer? We'll have someone follow up with you.
Okay,
I'll go get my card. I'll give you my card. You can stop in,
Okay.
give me a call, and if you want an agenda, I can print one for you.
Yeah.
If you want anything else, we can provide that as well. But I'll go get my card and I'll give that to you before you go.
it feels like it's all happening without the people right in the area knowing about it. And so I'm concerned about that because how can we have input if we can't get answers and it's going to be voted on soon? Nobody has any response?
I would remind you again, this is not supposed to be a back and forth. It's just a chance for public comment, so.
The problem, that's fine, but the problem for me is I haven't heard the different steps, and it feels like it's almost over with. Right? Is that's intentional, I assume?
It's to prevent, it's the no back and forth during public comments, been a rule since well before I was mayor. It's generally to prevent meetings from breaking down and kind of back and forth during the public comment. So like, I would offer, I think you made your point, is what I think.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, we are still in the public comment part of the agenda. So if anyone else wishes to speak.
I'm Sue Dalk. I live in the Meridian, which is an over 55 community directly across the street from what the proposal is for the school. I can tell you that our community is not happy about this. We've put up with major traffic problems when there are tournaments held in that building because of the age of the people in the community where we live. People drive at high rates of speed. It's hard to get out of our driveway onto Prairie Heights, let alone try to turn left or right. I just want to express my feeling that I don't think it's the proper spot for a school. I don't care if it's a public school, a private school, an alternative school, whatever. I just think with the surrounding community, the people are feel unsecure. Just wanted to express my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in the public comment portion.
My name's Todd Schilling. I live at New Age Way. Well, I would like to make sure that the traffic is addressed. Is that going to be changed to a school zone, or is there going to be any? There's no crosswalk anywhere, and there's no sidewalk on M anywhere, except for the bike path down the road. But is any of that going to be changed? So that's my only comment tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public comment. Seeing no one else approaching the microphone, we'll move on to item 4, which is the approval of the minutes from the December 5th, 2022 Plan Commission meeting. Questions, comments, or motions to approve? Commissioner Tucker-Long.
I move that we approve the minutes from last meeting.
Motion by Commissioner Tucker-Long. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Woods. Last chance for corrections to the minutes. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the December 5th, 2022 Plan Commission meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the minutes are approved. My apologies to the people for item 5, but I'm going to ask for the unanimous consent of the body to move item 7 to our next item, since I think that's what the majority of people are here to hear about. Okay, seeing no objections, we will talk about item 7, which is discussion and possible action regarding a zoning map amendment to rezone 411 Prairie Heights Drive from suburban commercial to public institutional. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. So with us tonight as well is Jess Billmeyer. Jess Billmeyer is the city traffic engineer. Jess will be kind of helping explain some of the traffic findings and addressing some of the comments that were also raised here tonight too. This project did have a public hearing on December 5th of 2022 before the Plan Commission. As part of that, we did notify the adjacent property owners, posted a public hearing notification sign on the property, and put a Class 2 public hearing notice in the newspaper. Plan Commission voted at that December meeting 6-0 to postpone making a recommendation on that, and the Plan Commission requested additional information from staff to complete a traffic, both external and kind of internal circulation study, and that's the reason why Jess is here tonight. I can kind of briefly address a few of the kind of questions or comments that came up that probably aren't related to traffic. One, kind of what's the maximum capacity of the building? The capacity is determined based on the square footage and what type of use it is. So I believe the applicant is looking at, I don't have the exact number right in front of me, I was trying to look for that. I think it's about 250 students when it's all said and done. So from a capacity standpoint, it does meet the code requirements regardless of what happens here tonight when they go to pull a building permit. All that stuff is reviewed, bathrooms, ADA accessibility, all those items are reviewed when they pull the building permit to make modifications to the buildings. How many parking spaces are out there right now? There's approximately 180 parking spaces there today, give or take. From a strictly zoning standpoint, we do base parking based upon the actual use of it. So from a zoning standpoint, the code does require one parking space per employee, and then 0.5 spaces per student. So if they did have 250 students there, this would be sufficient to park the site. So staff hasn't had any concerns with that. Regarding about the tax portion of it, taxing and zoning doesn't go together whatsoever. Irregardless of that, the applicant still intends to have this property be taxable. It's not going to be tax exempt by any means. It will still be a taxable piece of property. So, like I said, tax and zoning issues are completely separate, but regardless of the point, that's what the applicant is looking at doing. I guess with that, I'll turn it over to Jess, if you want to talk about kind of what you've done since the December meeting and
Sure.
what your recommendations are tonight.
So yeah, I can do that. Can everybody hear me? All right, thanks for inviting me back again. I appreciate talking with you always. We did complete the traffic study after the last meeting. We had traffic counts taken in early December. The morning count was taken on December 8th. The afternoon count was taken on December 12th, so both ends of a weekend. We delayed one of them because there was a big snowstorm back then, and we didn't get counts during that time. It's all gone now, but, you know. After that, we add new trips for the high school on top of the counts that we took out there. We do that with a process called trip generation. So for this, we used a comparable school site. We had a proposal back in 2020. St. Ambrose was considering coming to the city of Verona, and they had done a traffic study. So we used the trip generation from their report. They had based it on their school on Old Sauk at High Point. So a very similar sized school. It had about 200 students. This proposal has a maximum of 260 students, is what we understand. So we took that 260 students, generated the number of trips that we would expect that to happen based on similar school sites. And that ends up being about 200 trips, about 120 in the morning and 80 going back out. So the reason for the in and out is people are dropping off their kids and then leaving. So each time they cross the driveway counts as a trip. So 80 people driving in and out would be 160 trips. And then based on the St. Ambrose stuff, about 40 people would be parking on the site as students or teachers. After we develop those trips, we distribute them to the street network. We think most of the traffic is going to be heading out the site towards Highway M. Once they get to Highway M, we had about 60% going to the south towards the bypass and about 40% heading back into the city of Verona. We had only 5% of the traffic kind of going out the back way, so the concern of going to Meadowood or Locust, I don't feel like many folks are going to take that route to get to the back. I live on the north side of Verona. When I've taken my kids to the back, I've never taken Locust or taken that way. It's just faster to come in Prairie Heights. After doing all of that, generating the trips, distributing it to we load it into a traffic model, and we run the school peak. The school peak is going to be a little bit later than the AM peak and a little bit earlier than the PM peak, so it benefits from a little bit less traffic on Highway M than during the heaviest periods. That traffic model is showing no issues on County M. We assign letter grades to traffic operations, kind of like school. A is really good, F is really bad. Our standard for the city is we want to be D or better for the traffic movements. Our model had this intersection at level of service C or better on all of the movements. The only movement that was C was exiting from the stop sign, turning left. All of the other movements are free flow. They don't have to stop, other than the outgoing right, which is easier than the left. So in terms of traffic congestion, we're not seeing any concerns with that based on the counts and modeling that we've done. The second item is the drop-off and pickup area, and I think Adam may have a map of the site that I can maybe walk you through. It'll be easier than just me talking. There we go. So yeah, let me know if you can see that on your screen, the big red roof. All right, so to get you oriented, north is to the top of the screen, and M is kind of passing through the right diagonal top of the image, and then Prairie Heights is kind of running a diagonal top left. The drop-off and pickup proposal is to have folks enter in the far west driveway, so that's the one on the far left side of the screen. They would drive through the parking lot and kind of wind their way to the front door. And then the drop-off area would be near that front door for where the stairs to the school are kind of in that northeast part of the site. At that drop-off area, we're proposing taking out the large island that kind of sticks out into the parking and making that front area a drop-off area. So there would no longer be parking in front of the site along that northwesterly side of the building. That would be a dedicated drop-off area. That allows people to pull out of the driving rows, drop off their kid, and then get around people that are waiting to drop off others. In terms of the length, there's studies done in Texas and South Carolina about how much space you need for drop-off and pickup. And I recommended they have at least 400 feet of area between where the drop-off and pickup is and the street. And they've exceeded that 400 feet of distance. So I don't expect there to be drop-off, pickup queues back into Prairie Heights. I like the drop-off and pickup quite a bit for the weekends also. I think it'll help for the tournaments that they already have at this site to have a more dedicated drop-off and pickup area. There's a lot of youth sports events in the gym in the back. And the current area is really short for that drop-off pickup use on the weekends. So I think this will have some benefits for that also. Let's see, in terms of the speed limit, I actually agree with the gentleman that it would be nice to lower the speed limit on Highway M in this area. For your information, the county controls the speed limit east of Prairie Heights. When we approached them about lowering the speed limit, maybe 5-6 years ago, they did a speed study, and it showed that the speed should stay at the speed they were at. But I think it's a good idea to approach them again and see if they'll reconsider. In terms of the sight lines around the driveways, I also agree. It would be good to paint one car length around those driveways with the yellow curb and post no parking to have better sight lines. Let's see, I think that was all of the questions I wrote down in a summary of the traffic study.
Anything to add, Mr. Sayer?
No, I don't have anything to add at this point. Staff still, after, Jess doing his work and, continue to look at this, staff still does recommend the Plan Commission recommend approval of the rezoning with the condition that the zoning map amendment shall become effective upon Impact Charter School / the applicant acquiring the property. I think after Jess took a look at it, I think, from a staff level standpoint, we're still comfortable with this zoning change request. Regarding the Dane County speed study, that's something if the city goes forward with that, we make that request to Dane County. We've done that before. It's been turned down before, but it's something we can kind of do outside of this process. And then regarding if there's interest in painting kind of those no parking areas next to the driveways that was recommended by one of the speakers tonight, that's something that would have to go through public safety as well, ultimately with an ordinance amendment change. And then obviously the painting and installation of those signs could realistically occur at some point this spring. But that's, once again, we can do that outside of this process. If there's an issue out there today, we can look at that.
I guess I would just add that I'm definitely in favor of both those things, regardless of how this process moves forward. But with that, I would open it up to general discussion or motions from the Plan Commission. Questions, comments, thoughts? Alder Posey.
Not sure who this one's for, but what is the actual number? I know we talk about tournaments and everything else. What is our numbers that we're looking at of people who use the building, visits to the building currently? Because I think that's a critical piece of information that we haven't included in any of this. Because in my mind, having been part of running a facility like this, I'm like, a school to me is actually less usage and less trips from my experience, but I'd love to hear the data.
So yeah, we haven't done a driveway count of the weekend tournament weekends. But yeah, I would agree with you that my expectation is that the tournaments would be more traffic than the school would generate. But I don't have the number. But yeah, I would agree with your assessment that it's more on tournament weekends than the school would be.
I follow up? Does anybody from the school have that data potentially, as far as what you know they use at that facility now? It's okay if the answer is no, I just would love to know if anybody looked into that piece.
So, not specifically data, but having 4 boys that have played multiple tournaments at that facility, the weekends are challenging. As Jess said, I think the drop-off zone that we're going to invest in to expand the drop-off zone is going to help for sure, because there's a lot of congestion in front of that building that is annoying, actually, when you're a parent trying to get your kid dropped off. So I think it's an improvement, during really the toughest time that I've seen, on weekends during tournaments. We all know the challenge there. Yes, you had.
Can I keep going? Because I got a
Do
couple
you
more.
do you have a question, or?
I do.
Okay, then yeah.
So my other question is, will you be hosting any tournaments or large events similar to what goes on now as a school?
Well, the leaser of the, we won't be the leaser of the actual gym. It's still the same company that runs the tournament, so everything will be during school hours, is probably the easiest way to answer your questions.
Okay. So,
I think your question was, would tournaments occur during school hours?
well, I'm trying to figure out, my main concern is what I'm hearing from everybody, and again, having been involved with recreational facilities, drop-offs, pickups, kids running, all those things, everything that is concerned from the residents is, are we adding to the traffic? Are we starting to resolve some of the traffic issues that they've had for years by being really specific about this? And I know we've talked about this. I thought I had understood that this was going to transition the whole facility to school usage eventually, or,
No, if you look in the packet with the actual projections, it maxes out in 4 or 5 years at 260 students at the absolute max.
Right.
And that's when we would outlive the facility, and we'd be fundraising 2 years earlier to, have a high school elsewhere. So right now, as you know, it's zoned, and was originally used as, and could be used now as a wedding facility, right? A banquet facility. And the current tenant in there, I believe, is leaving in February 19th. So there's a possibility that venue could be opened up again for that kind of use, which brings other concerns, I think, about night parking and traffic and that sort of
right?
thing.
And even traffic during the daytime when you guys are there, or the school is there.
Well, you wouldn't have both, right? It's either the school or it goes back to a potential current use, which is banquet use, after
Okay.
the current tenant is out in February.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Maybe just to be clear, the school is only on the second level of the facility where there's a banquet facility, so the rest of the tenants in the first floor and the gym tenant wouldn't change with the school proposal, is my understanding.
Commissioner Tucker Long, and then myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have a question on the traffic study. If we didn't count how many cars are coming in and out of there currently with the current tenants, and the current tenants are not leaving, wouldn't that increase the traffic numbers?
Oh, sorry, we did include Kevin also did count the driveway. There was about 10 in and out in each of the hours. So it was really minor traffic during those school entry and exit times. So yes, we did count the driveway.
Okay, so then my next question is on the parking. Does the parking requirements include the other tenants, or is there only one parking requirement for the whole building? How do the parking requirements work?
So from a zoning standpoint, you'd look at each tenant from that standpoint, so we'd have to break it down by a per tenant basis. Part of it, as we look at this too, is just based upon kind of the data we know that's there right now and how it's empty, especially during these hours. That's kind of without getting into overkill, and kind of using the rule of thumb of just what's out there right now, is it appropriate or not? We think there's definitely sufficient parking, but you could potentially go through and break it down by use, but then you're also then breaking it down by time of day. I think there's an Anytime Fitness in there, so it's not your typical fitness facility. You have Burn Boot Camp in there, and the gyms are obviously a completely different animal depending on time of day. And we have not gone through and done a full, complete breakdown on it, partially just because of the findings kind of in this traffic study and just what we know is going on out there. The big demand is during those tournaments and athletic events.
So, I mean, my daughter took ballet out there, and when I would go out there, there were multiple classes happening. There were basketball clinics happening during the day for younger kids, so this was during school. And that whole front parking lot was full. I've had to park on the side several times just during a random weekday, not during a tournament or anything. And I'm just curious because if their parking usage fits, but just barely in the parking spaces, but then we have these other schools who have parents coming and parking, and a lot of these lessons and things, the parents aren't just dropping off and leaving, they're staying. I mean, there's a lot of people there that are there during the week, and so I'm wondering how that usage fits in with this as well.
Sure. I think we estimated the parking for the school would fit in, I don't know if you can, well, it's kind of on the map, it's super small, the far northwest portion of the lot. And talking with the applicant, they think they can get the students and teachers to park in that back section of the lot. Yeah, in terms of how often that back lot is used, I don't know.
Which one is the back lot?
Yeah.
The side one? Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't know what to call it.
No, that's okay. I just was like, which way is back on this? Yeah. Okay. I guess I'm really concerned that, I mean, a high school with no busing, you know, it seems like there's going to be more traffic than this. You know, all those kids have to get there somehow. And sure, when you're talking about freshmen, they're not driving yet, but sophomores are driving already and going up. And I mean, granted, I haven't been in high school in a long time, but I remember everybody would rather drive themselves than their parents. And when there were things during the day when parents needed to come, they drove separately from their kids. And so I don't know if that's changed in, you know, recent times. Is that different? But it just, you know, I can't imagine a high school without parent activities and parent involvement. And, you know, just looking at how much is already there, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be enough space. I'm also wondering, too, in the traffic study for the letter grades you were talking about, were you also looking at people turning left off of M onto, is it Investment?
Yep.
Yeah. Because I've already seen that back up just in the morning of people going to Anytime Fitness.
Sure. Yeah, our model didn't show any concerns there. In terms of the trip generation, we used the St. Ambrose trip generation, but we compared it to other schools that are in more national studies. And we found that it was pretty comparable, but the St. Ambrose trip generation that we did use was higher in the PM peak, and we think that's because there's no afternoon activities at this school where there is at a regular school. So I guess everybody leaving at the end of the day should be taken into account with the trip generation, and it was consistent with, you know, other high school studies that we've looked at, if not a little bit higher.
Sorry, there wasn't a question asked, so my apologies, but no. Anything else? All right, I'm calling on myself. Question for Mr. Billmeyer. How long is peak typically for a school, like drop off in the morning or in the evening?
Yeah, they're usually about 15 minutes long. Sometimes they'll spill over into the 15 minutes adjacent. So yeah, school peaks are generally very condensed.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess one comment on that. My son goes to Sugar Creek Elementary, and like when you drive by and it's not drop off or pickup, like it's a very, very quiet building.
Yep.
The main thing I'm stuck on is traffic on M, and that's kind of what Commissioner Tucker Long mentioned as well about that left turn off of M. And I know there was recently a fatal accident over that bridge, and obviously that was due to icy conditions and some other factors, and maybe just bad luck. But I mean, we don't control M, and if there was a problem there, we would have to get the county to do something or to help us out. I'm not saying they wouldn't. It's just that Dane County's big, and comparatively Verona's not. Sure. And so I I guess I just have overall safety concerns that, like, if it was a safety issue, we might not be able to do anything about it. I mean, am I generally right on that?
Generally, yep,
Okay.
yeah. We would need county
Okay.
support to make changes, yep.
Commissioner Hankard?
But to that point, Luke, these tournaments, I don't have a lot of personal experience over there, but these tournaments I'm hearing have a lot of traffic, right? Have we had accidents coming in and out of there to date in any kind of rash numbers, during tournaments, for example?
Mr. Sayre, if you know off the top of your head?
I'm not aware of it, Jess, are you?
Not, the police department puts together a high crash location list every year, and I don't remember this location as sticking out. Usually the ones are like PB&M, M Cross Country, Main Street downtown. Those intersections usually pop up, but I don't remember this one.
So my point is, we have a very good example at this site. It already exists. It's not causing a crash problem anyway. I'm not saying it's not causing perhaps other problems, but it's not causing a crash problem, so maybe we can somewhat put that to rest. And secondly, are there permitted uses that maybe I'll direct this to you, Jess, are there permitted uses that would generate just as much traffic, and we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation because they're permitted uses?
Sure. I don't know if I can answer that one off the top of my head. Retail use would definitely have more traffic than this, I would think. I didn't check office, but they generally have similar rush in the morning, rush in the PM kind of patterns.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I guess go ahead, Mr. Sayre.
So right now it is zoned suburban commercial, so what we're looking at tonight is just the zoning. A high school land use is a permitted use in the public institutional district. So ultimately, if it's rezoned and the use is allowed by right, for the most part, it's allowed to go in there. So right now in the suburban commercial district, you're kind of asking what the comparable is, and Jess, you can correct me if I'm wrong in this statement. Right now in that district, high schools are not permitted by right, but colleges and universities are. And I'm not saying that is a complete comparable, but if it's a MATC of some type, pretty much everyone's driving at that point. So that's kind of the comparable, even though it's zoned that right now. If there was, take your pick, university who wanted to come in, it's a good chance they could possibly go in there. So that is probably the best comparable. If you want to talk kind of today, if you don't rezone the property, you could still do a college, university in that building by right.
And I guess I would just add real quick, under suburban commercial, there's pretty wide latitude. So there definitely is probably uses that could generate a lot more traffic than the high school. Commissioner Tucker-Long.
I think one of the other things that concerns me is that it seems temporary. So we're being asked to make a zoning change for something where they're talking about in a few years, maybe it going back to its current use, which would require another zoning change. And so I guess I'm wondering if this property needs to keep flipping zones. Is it really in the correct zone? I mean, I guess, is it common for properties to have to switch zoning every couple of years?
Mr. Sayre?
I think a building like this that is, I'm not sure how many square feet it is with multiple levels, it's going to happen, especially over time. This building's been there now 20-ish years, give or take. I mean, rule of thumb, honestly, is after 20 years, that's when the buildings start to either turn over or sometimes get demolished because they're not built to last anymore nowadays. So is it common? It's not common, but is it uncommon? No, it's a unique building. You have a banquet center right now on top of a gym. That's not common either. I mean, I can't think of another example of that type of use. So, you've got a space up there right now of kind of what do you do with it? Little John's has been up there for a little bit, and obviously they're moving out. Once they move out, if this doesn't go forward, what does it turn into? I mean, the office market right now is kind of shot still. It's not in good shape. I mean, when it ends up going in there, maybe a banquet center again? I don't know, but no, it's not common. But the building is, like I said, I wouldn't say this is really a common kind of setup that you would normally see either.
Is there such thing as a temporary zoning switch? Or like a zoning, like exemption or something?
No, I mean, the way, if you wanted to do it, is you could potentially, I think we had some conversations with the applicant about this too. I mean, you could amend the ordinance to allow that type of use in the suburban commercial district. Now, I mean, what that does then across the city, that opens up that use in that district as well, and you have to be very cautious with that. Any rezoning you have to look at to make sure that you have the right basis for it. It's not also spot zoning as well. This isn't spot zoning by any means. But no, once a zoning is assigned, you can't put a time limit on it. It runs with the land until something changes.
Possible for the zoning to run with the tenant, no?
No, I mean, if you're rezoning a piece of property, regardless of even the situation, you want it to kind of stand to the merits of, is this appropriate or not, long-term, of how you want to see this building set up too. And that's how it should be looked at as well.
Okay. So we should be looking at this for, should this building be a school going forward? Not necessarily the specific school we're looking at, but
I wouldn't put it generally like that, to that degree. I mean, the reality is you have pretty much every tenant's going to stay in that building. I mean, 'cause I think there's one that's probably moving out of there. So you have Ballet U's there right now. You've got the gym there on the first floor. I think there's a couple other ones in there as well, and they're escaping my mind. But
there's a couple of them that'll have to move out if we change the zoning.
I believe it's one that for sure has to go, possibly two. It's
Okay.
not, at the most, it's two.
Okay.
But I think as you kind of look at it, even the staff report from December, we had the list of uses there that are right now conditional, and the ones that would be permitted are in both districts as well. I think as you kind of take a look at that, fitness is still an allowable use. I'm not saying that's what's going to go on the second floor, but you do lose some of those uses that are zoned commercial when the property's rezoned to public institutional. The reality is you can look at, if the school moves out, whenever that is, you could look at rezoning it, or who knows, maybe a different school wants to go in there, maybe some other type of use that, like a daycare center potentially as a conditional use could possibly go in there some type. I don't know, I'm just talking. So as you look at that, that's the kind of stuff you want to weigh as well, of just, you can always rezone it again in the future. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't. But to your point, yeah, I don't think you want to be flipping it back and forth every 6 months to a year.
Other thoughts, questions, or motions? Commissioner Lytle.
Hearing from the neighbors who honestly have really put up with a lot, and I don't blame that on the operators of the athletic center. It is, has been a very popular building in very condensed timeframes during these tournaments. So, one of the questions we had last month was regarding traffic flow, how that could be set up, and Jess did a great job of explaining that, and how one driveway would be in only during drop-off and pickup, and how there'd be changes made to the site for that drop-off zone. Similarly, probably some signage and instructions for students and staff. But that sounds like the kinds of conditions we'd put on a site plan, which, as I understand it, we won't be asking for a site plan review for this. All we're doing is being asked to make a zoning change. So suppose the applicants talk with parents and decide that this traffic flow doesn't work for them. What recourse does the city have if we can't include it as a condition of the zoning change? I guess that's a long-winded way to ask that question, but.
Mr. Zaire?
I don't have a good answer for that one tonight. I mean, that's the reality of it. I mean, you can't conditionally rezone the property based upon that requirement. I mean, you have to take them at their word for it. I mean, there's telling you they're gonna do that. Ultimately, if there are traffic issues out there, we do have some police power, especially as it relates to public streets. There's things that we can do out there. But that would be an issue if they didn't make those improvements. I mean, the reality too is, I mean, this is based on numbers as well. So we're giving our best guess of no different than any use going into any building right now. We're using the data that we have available and making our best prediction based on, people that do this every day. We could be wrong as well, too. I mean, that is the reality of what we do here of, none of us are perfect, obviously, too. So, what recourse ultimately, like I said, we have that police power that if there was a public safety issue being created in the streets of some fashion, we could explore those options.
So yeah, I guess, while acknowledging that there aren't going to be 260 students next fall, and there'll be some ramp-up time and some time to work out some of the issues as the school ramps up. If I were a neighbor here and see that in sum total there's going to be more traffic, not during the peak times that we see during tournaments, and they're hearing from the city that, yeah, we can try to ask the county to reduce speed limits, and we can try to go to public safety and get these no parking zones extended and signed better. It's asking a lot of the residents with all these concerns to say, yeah, we'll take a look at that, and we might be able to do something. We might not if the county decides that the speed limit should stay where it is. But in the meantime, we are committing to making this a public institution zoning. So, all that in total makes it difficult for me to feel comfortable saying, yeah, let's go, and we're going to take people at their word, and we're going to get this worked out over the next 6 months to a year, when the traffic issues with the tournaments have been ongoing for many years now. And I guess this just shines a spotlight on those issues that are really not associated with operating this facility as a school during weekdays, but just some reasons it gives me pause here.
Commissioner Wood.
So I guess one thought I have is right now, I don't have kids. I don't ever go there, but I drive by it and I see the tournaments, how busy they are. Presumably there's not going to be an overlap of school and a tournament. But what I'm thinking we are going to see is a tournament on the weekend or whenever, and then the additional traffic during the week. So during the week, there was a little bit of reprieve maybe for the neighborhood, that there's not enough traffic, we deal with it, on the weekend, and now all of a sudden we're dealing with it 7 days a week. So I'm wondering if maybe, I don't know, it's more a statement, but I'm wondering if maybe that's part of the concern, is that it's going to be a daily thing versus a sporadic traffic concern.
Alder Posey.
So I think with what we've been hearing, how do we get this, is this something that we, as far as the parking, because the greatest thing I'm hearing is keep talking about the tournament side, which has been an existing problem for a very long time. Do we put this in front of, and not necessarily the zoning side, I want to separate that and stop me if I should take this off to something else. Because does this go in front of public safety with the parking side? Because I think if we resolve that, honestly, the use of this building, the building itself as a school makes sense. It's parking and traffic that is our problem. And that's already an existing problem that needs to be fixed. So how do we fix the existing problem to allow for this facility to be the great facility that it is for kids and families in our community, where it's used to its fullest ability and not being a negative impact on the neighborhood? So I don't know who's got an answer to that, but is that the step we should be taking? Like, allow us to look at the school and then look at the parking in this side as well, just like we do with all of our other existing school facilities that cause our neighborhoods agita.
Mr. Sayre.
Yeah, so with the existing ones, we deal with those on a staff level. Those are ones that we've handled on a staff level. So like with the Sugar Creek situation that we had 2 years ago, that was resolved with staff and working with the staff at the VASD. So that's how that one's been worked out in the sense of dealing with that issue. You know, for this request tonight, you've got, and I was trying to look it up as we were talking here, you've postponed it once. By statute, I believe you have 90 days to act on it since the date of the application. There needs to be a recommendation here tonight regardless, just because we're abutting that 90-day window. So, I mean, we need to get a recommendation out here because there is a statutory time limit that the Plan Commission has to act on zoning changes, and usually it doesn't come up, so I haven't brought that up before, but I'm just making you aware of that. You know, how do you deal with that problem today? I mean, the reality of what you have today is you have a banquet center that could possibly be going up there or not. You know, irregardless of the outcome, I think that your point is there's challenges out there today. I think, and I didn't go back and dig in the file, I think this isn't the first time that there's been complaints out there. You know, the reality is I think there's been complaints over the years out there as well too. Before my time with the city, I've been here now 10 years, but I know there's been issues there in the past. I don't know exactly how you're going to resolve kind of all the issues that go on out there. If there's tournaments going on with, I think, 4 gyms, looking at Rec Director Dudley, okay, 4 gyms in there, so there's 4 gyms in there. If you got, you know, 8 teams playing and then potential overlap as well, that's kind of where the issue comes in. The site can't be expanded, you're out of space. There's no additional parking that can be put on here. I mean, you're, to the west, you're against a stormwater facility, to the south, you're against 18151, north, you got a road, east, you got a highway. You know, we can't get back in our time machines and go back in time on this site at all, so we can't do that either, but you could look at options out there. I mean, you could look at regarding, you know, on-street parking. You could put restrictions in place. Is that just moving a problem down the road? That could be the case as well, too. But, I mean, irregardless of how this turns out tonight, I mean, it's something that public safety, whoever could look at, but you still have a space above that gym that is going to be empty here possibly in February. You know, there's permitted uses that could possibly go into that right now, and, you know, I don't know if it's going to solve the concerns that are being raised here tonight. Irregardless of the decision tonight, if there's issues out there today, regardless of what you do, it's not going to solve the concerns.
Sorry, got to think on all the things. I mean, I do have to say, I think the usage of the building itself and the property itself is a good usage. I think the challenge that I'm hearing, and I know someone had brought up sidewalks, but I know I want to point out that we are seeing sidewalks for safety for walking around there. It's a challenging thing. I think I really want to see, I know I don't think we can tonight to say, like, we have to put conditions on for street parking and how to manage that, because I do think that's, because it's sort of Wild West as far as street parking, from what I hear. Thankfully, in some ways, my kids didn't pick this option for sports. I got to deal with other ones. But I think that is something we have to do going forward no matter what. And like I said, I think the facility-wise, it makes sense. I want to say to everybody who has spoken, I'm saying that, and I'm also saying I hear you with concerns as far as traffic, and not necessarily just the school issue, but as a whole. Because what I'm hearing tonight and have heard up until now is a holistic concern relating to parking and traffic in that area. So know that this body has heard those concerns and can see what we can be doing, because as, you know, Mr. Sayer said, I know that the staff have dealt with the schools and worked on those different traffic patterns to help things move a little better as all those changes occurred in the last couple of years. So I'll allow anybody else who's got a point, but I'd say I will say that I'm in favor of that use for this facility, to have a school there, because I think the facility itself lends itself to something involving youth and families. And, you know, we have a lot of empty space in our buildings. And so for me, I think we can continue to work on and develop solutions for the traffic patterns And I would assume, being that the folks who are going to be owning it and the school have been here, no parent wants to deal with a headache of a drop-off and makes their voices known. So I think that that can continue to be developed, and hopefully that can be in coordination with the neighbors as well, to make sure everybody is safe.
Other questions, comments, or motions on this item? Commissioner Tucker-Long.
One of the things that we heard repeatedly from commenters at the last meeting and at this one is that visibility is really hard when you're pulling out of the driveways from the community across the street from the VIC. So they have two driveways that come out, and one of them is lined up with what we're talking about being the entrance to the drop-off, and then the other one is closer to the intersection. And with parking all along that side of the street, it is really difficult to see. Even when you get all the way down to the next block, during tournaments on the weekends, people park all the way down the street. And it's really difficult to turn left onto Investment here because of the cars being parked along right up to the intersections. And cars come down this road very quickly. And so it's hard to be able to see to pull out. So I'm wondering if something that might ease the neighbors' concerns is if we don't allow parking on the opposite side of the street from the VAC, and that would open up their visibility so that they can see out of the driveway to get out. And it would also make the road a little bit wider there as well, potentially to allow cars to get around anyone who is waiting to turn left into the VAC, then traffic could still get around them. Is that something we can do, or is that a different committee? And, yeah.
So that would be, that's public safety. Excuse me, I already have a note to talk to our Public Works Director about Dane County and the speed limit out there, and then I also made a note based upon the comments of kind of looking at that 25 feet. I mean, if the planning commission wants to, recommend something further, we could take that to public safety to consider as well. 25 feet is similar. I'm looking at that's similar to what we did on 9 Mountain by the Military Ridge State Trail, I believe. So we tried to open up this like a 1-car sight line there. You could always start with that, or you could do more than that too. But that's something when it goes to public safety, we can bring that up too.
Commissioner Hankard.
I'll be brief. I know we're getting long on this one, but it seems a little bit like we're penalizing, if you will, the school's application for the issues, as Alder Posey pointed out, that it's the tournaments that seem to be the real issues. I didn't hear from Jess that the school was going to cause any parking problems or any level of service problems or any turning movement problems. So why are we getting bogged down with penalizing the school for the tournament issues is my statement. Thank you.
Excuse me. Other questions, comments, or motions on this item? Alder Posey.
One more point of clarification, I think I have something. So this will go to public safety to address those things, or do we need to put certain conditions on? Because I don't think we can do that with zoning, correct?
The only condition on here is just the effectiveness of it based upon the ownership change. What I will do is I'll talk to the chief tomorrow, and we'll figure out which public safety kind of agenda we can put this on. I think at the end of this month, it's going to be a full agenda already, but we could look at something in the next month or two before spring and see what we can do. We'll move as quick as we can, but that's something I can kind of go back to the chief. We'll get something on there, explain the situation. I'll talk to Chief Dresser as well, just about what ideas he has about this. I know I talked to him briefly about the 25-foot parking idea. He thought that seemed reasonable, seemed like a good point. But we can take this kind of discussion to public safety. So we usually take it to public safety like we do here. We take it as a discussion item, and then we come back. If there's a desire to change the ordinance, we come back with that ordinance amendment at the following meeting. So we'll take it there as soon as we can. So I don't need anything from you, from the Planning Commission. I think it's been noted, and we'll work on it as staff.
And where would that agenda item be posted for the public who are here tonight to be able to understand? Where to, the Public Safety Committee, where do they post their agendas?
So we post all our agendas here at City Hall. We post them at the library. We also post them at Miller's. We also post all of our packets and agendas on the city's website as well. And as part of that, there's I should pull it up, but there's a little, on the main page where it says notify me, you can sign up to be notified of a whole bunch of stuff on there, including when we post agendas. So anytime you want to know about when there's a council meeting, it sends you an email that, oh, there's a council meeting, next Monday night, and the packet's been posted on the website. You click on the link and it pops up. We don't notify neighborhoods when we make changes to parking, for example. Public safety typically meets on the second and fourth Mondays of each month. Their meetings do not happen every second and fourth Monday. They do happen occasionally. I would think this would possibly go maybe to the first or second meeting in February, but those agendas would be posted, though, at Miller's in the library and those spots I rattled off.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments, or motions on this item? Alder Posey.
I'd like to make a motion that the Plan Commission recommend to the Common Council approval of the zoning map amendment to rezone 411 Prairie Heights Drive from suburban commercial to public institutional. And I think there was a condition, correct? Sorry. I'm not on the right page. I believe the condition is with the applicant getting control of the property.
That's the applicant acquiring the
There
property.
it is. The zone, effective upon the Impact Charter School applicant acquiring the property.
Motion by Alder Posey. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Henkard. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Oh, sorry. Commissioner Lytle.
Just so no one's caught by surprise, I will be voting against recommending approval tonight, not because I don't think a school is a good use for this property, but given the overall conditions of traffic as they exist currently, I wouldn't in good conscience vote for adding additional days where there are additional traffic happening until we address some of the existing problems. So if this were an agenda item in 2-3 months, when potentially we've done some fact-finding with the county or addressed some of the no parking zones that were discussed, I could find myself supporting it, but as of tonight, I won't be.
Other questions or comments on the motion? Commissioner Wood.
So just kind of a procedural thing. So if this is not recommended, can the applicant come back and apply again in 3 months, whatever, if they wish?
So what would happen is, whether it gets recommended for or against, at this meeting, it would go to the council, and then the council would confirm or deny whatever had happened. So ultimately, this is just a recommendation. And then I believe they would have to wait a year, is my understanding, to reapply.
I'd have to check it. I believe there's some language if there's a change in circumstances, which you have to weigh that, and it could potentially get to Mr. Lytle's point as well, but I would have to check and see what the criteria are for that.
And then in regard to the 90-day clock, if the city doesn't act upon it, it's automatically approved. Is that my understanding?
I'd have to check the statute on that, but we do have a window to deal with these under, so that's, yeah, I don't know what the ramifications are, but that could be one of them.
Okay. Yeah, no, ultimately, we have to follow state law, and we have to make a decision within 90 days. We just have to make a decision within 90 days. Other questions or comments? I'll just call on myself real quick. This one is really tough because I think the school sounds really great, and it sounds like it's going to, it would be a net positive for the community. I'm just kind of in the same boat as Commissioner Lytle here, where I'm just kind of really concerned about the traffic, and there's just been a few things I think not to get too much on my soapbox here, but there's been places in the city that when they were built, they were fine. But that traffic engineering, stormwater engineering, even just more people living in the city of Verona, it's changed over time. And so areas that were okay, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, don't really work as well as they do now. And so I guess, yeah, my concerns, I think it's just, this is a really tough site, and I'm just generally concerned about traffic on M. And so I will be voting no, not to recommend it. And that has absolutely nothing to do with the school. I think the school is great. It's just, overall concerns about traffic. And like Commissioner Lytle said, maybe if things get sorted out in the next, 3 or 4 months, I could be brought around to a yes. But as noted repeatedly, we don't actually have 3 or 4 months to make a decision. Any other comments? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to approve the zoning map amendment to rezone 411 Prairie Heights Drive from suburban commercial to public institutional with the condition with the condition specified in the packet, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
No. Could we get hands raised for no? All right, so by my count, it fails 2-4. It will go on to the Common Council for a final decision next week. And with that, we will move back to the regular agenda. Oh, yeah, sorry.
So just to clarify, the people voting in denial, I'm just doing this for a variety of purposes, based upon traffic and public safety concerns, is that a nod of the head? Yes, yes? Okay, thank you.
Okay. With that, we will return to the agenda as written out, and we'll move to item 5, which is a review and adoption of the City of Verona's Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan as an amendment to the City Comprehensive Plan. Before we get into the public hearing, Mr. Sayre, can you give us a brief overview?
Sure, I'll be very vague here, and then maybe we can probably close the public hearing and then have the presentation after that. So as part of this, we do require, this is an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan. It's the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan that the Parks Board has been working on with MSA. Once again, this is a part of it's actually adoption. It's incorporated into the comprehensive plan. So as part of this, there's a Class 1 public hearing notice that we published, and then the Planning Commission actually adopts a resolution to this recommending this plan to the Common Council. There's a procedure that's actually laid out in statute. So that's why it's a little bit different when we amend the comp plan. It's that resolution component tonight. These two gentlemen will probably have more of a presentation than me on the topic, but that's the kind of the reason why we're having a public hearing, is that it's required by statute.
Thank you. With that, I will move that we open the public hearing in regard to the review and adoption of the City of Verona's Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lytle. All those in favor of opening the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? And we're in the public hearing regarding the City of Verona's Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. If anyone was here for that. Seeing nobody approaching the microphone regarding the outdoor recreation plan, a motion to close the public hearing would be in order. Motion by Commissioner Tucker-Long. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Wood. All those in favor of closing the public hearing regarding the outdoor recreation plan, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no? The public hearing is closed at 7:46 p.m. Gentlemen?
Good evening, folks. For those who don't know me, my name is Adam Wozak. I am the recently hired Director of Parks and Urban Forestry for the City of Verona. With me is Dan Schmidt from MSA, our consulting firm, who was hired by the city to facilitate and compile this great document that's going to help the Parks Department and Rec Department kind of guide us over the next 5 years here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and he can give you guys a brief presentation.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Commission, for having us out tonight. The Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, as mentioned, is a 5-year plan used to guide budgeting and capital improvement projects for the city, parkland acquisition and development, bike routes, trail development, and pedestrian facilities. It's a requirement for receiving state and federal park grants, which is why it's typically updated every 5 years. And As Mr. Sayer mentioned, it's in the city of Verona, it is adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. The overall project started, in February of '22 with the kickoff data collection and survey. So there's a public survey out and finding out what current interests within the park system were, so areas that were deficient, things that people liked about the parks, what things are missing, and how the Parks Department can work to make those things improved over the next 5 years. Starting in May, we did some additional engagement, having a booth at Hometown Days to get out and interact with the public a little bit, get some more information about some of the parks and trails and areas. Then in August, the draft plan went before the Parks Committee and was adopted in September. And we're here tonight for a recommendation and resolution for adoption. The plan content has an introduction describing this for anyone who wants to read it, description about Verona, the goals and strategies of the Parks Department, analysis of needs, so going through and looking at connections, access to and around parks, and then recommendations for the parks. Yeah, there we go. Implementation, and then appendix of all the survey information and park and recreation maps. So the initial findings, looking at the parks, the city provides 13.9 acres of parks per 1,000 residents, which is a little down from 2,000, but it's still a good number above the median. And there are currently 2 large residential development areas underserved by parks within the park. So that green area on the map shows a 10-minute access to all the different park facilities within the city. So for the additional feedback, looking at the different amenities that should be added, outdoor pool certainly came up, disc golf course, adventure course, off-road shared use pass, multi-use pass, restrooms. 84% of the respondents walk or exercise at least once per day, so they are interested in outdoor rec, and residents are driving outside of the community for those same amenities. Part of the plan development was looking at potential trail connections to be made, so this map is a highlight of that, and there's more detail on the specifics of that within the report itself. But looking at the letters are areas where future parks could be developed as part of future developments or other expansions, and then the pink lines are the proposed trail connections. That would either make connections between existing trails or be extensions of existing trails. And also within this, we develop cost estimates for the improvements that are suggested. So Adam and his team and the committee, Parks Commission, are able to prioritize the different improvements that were suggested as part of the plan. So as they're looking through grant improvements, capital budgeting, they have some numbers to use as a backdrop for potential improvements. So Cathedral Point Park would be looking at replacing the playground surfacing, adding additional trees, adding gutters to the shelter, security cameras, things like that. And these recommendations were developed for all of the parks. And as part of this plan in particular, we also did a master plan for Zing Park, which would be classified as a neighborhood park. So being able to show what that site could look at as it's developed. The plan shows a park pavilion similar to Cathedral Point, additional shade areas for playgrounds, both kind of adventure course, so something a little more unique, potentially geared towards older kids or youth, and then inclusive playground, zip line or other feature, and then being able to monitor the site or mediate the site with bioswales and other things to manage some of the on-site stormwater. The white trails providing interconnected walkways for neighborhoods or families and kids to get around the site, and other amenities as well. So when it's all said and done, the overall short-term recommendations, which included Zing Park, have about $3.1 million associated with them. Long-term recommendations are on the lower side, and Zing Park was about $1.5 million of that amount. None of those items are anything that city is required to do, but are the recommendations based on the surveys, committee feedback, staff feedback, and the public outreach that we conducted. Within that, other recommendations, things like maintenance and updates, replacing benches, putting benches on slabs for accessibility and maintenance, access, updating trash receptacles, and ongoing ADA accessibility. So something looking at ADA audit and potentially installing surveillance cameras at all shelters came up as an option. With that, are there any questions about the plan itself?
Any questions from the Plan Commission? Commissioner Tucker Long.
As far as, replacing the trees and, improving the trees and things like that, are we looking at native trees specifically? And also, too, have we considered putting in no-mow turf? Because I know I've seen, even during no-mow May, like, a lot of the parks were being mowed, even though, like, you couldn't even tell where it had been mowed. So,
Yeah, those are great questions, and, in my 1 month here, I think the tree species has come up a couple times, as well as low-mow areas and no-mow areas, and those are all things that we will explore from an arboricultural standpoint, absolutely. Whenever we can plant native trees, we will. At the same time, still trying to build that diversity so that when the next bug comes through, because it will, we don't lose a quarter of our canopy, right? So same thing with low-mow, kind of understanding that, park department, our role is not just to provide space for people to play soccer and people to play basketball, it's also to protect and conserve our environment, so we'll continue to explore ways that we can do that.
Other questions from the Plan Commission? Okay. Mr. Sayre? Sorry.
I have nothing else.
Okay. All right. We are discussing the resolution to adopt and recommend the comprehensive outdoor plan as an amendment to the City of Verona Comprehensive Plan. So questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Hankard.
I assume our role here right now is not particularly to nitpick the plan. Perhaps that ship has sailed, but it's more the adoption process.
I mean, you can always nitpick if you want, Mr. Sayre.
You can nitpick, yeah. I mean, obviously, the designs they have in there, that would still have to go back to Park Board for approval. So if they're looking at building a specific park and the design of the Zing Park they had there, but if there's specific things that you had and feedback, and you could potentially make amendments or just offer that to the staff as well, so they're aware of kind of what your thoughts are.
Sure. Yeah, I would just like to make one offer. I'm not asking you to redo any plans or go back to any committees. It's just that as I sit and look out my office and home window right on Verona Road, like, there are a lot of kids that go up and down Verona Road, like right in front of Clinky Cleaners, for example. And when I looked at the plan, I did look at your plan. Thank you for it. Looked excellent and comprehensive. I did not see any, other than on-street bike lanes, I did not see anything in terms of, say, widening the sidewalks along them. I'm just telling you, that gets a lot of use. And I know some of the plans showed maybe rerouting people down Lincoln, and then you get on the trail and all that, but kids don't do that. They're just going right down the sidewalk, and they're often going the wrong way. And I know when I come back, there's not a way for me. So anyway, I'm just saying that segment of Verona Road between M and Lincoln is, to me, a highly used piece of real estate that only has minimal sidewalks.
Mr. Sayre?
So we've Adam wouldn't know this, but we've talked about that over the years, to be honest with you, and the challenge we have there as it is today is the right-of-way. The right-of-way, there's none. So we're using all the right-of-way that's out there. So as we've had conversations with people on redevelopment there, we've attempted at times to acquire, or, however you want to put it, obtain right-of-way in that area just because there isn't enough space there. And that's to your point, it is, I think, a 4-foot sidewalk there. I don't think it's a 5-foot sidewalk. But then the terrace as well is tiny as well, too. So, you know, like I said, we've talked about it. You know, on-street parking then gets into play of what you do with that. You know, probably when that is going to be dealt with, and not to say we're kicking the can down the road, but when that road is reconstructed one day, that's probably when that item is going to be dealt with, whether it be looking at the on-street parking, looking at the, you know, potential bike lanes out there, sidewalks. Unless we can get additional right of way, it's going to be, it's tight. It's very tight, as you know.
Other thoughts from the Plan Commission? Alder Posey and then myself.
I really just want to say thank you for all the work. This takes a ton of work, and so thank you to everyone who's involved, and thank you to all the community members who responded to the surveys, because we do look at them, and that language comes into play and prioritizes what we do as a community. And I, as somebody who uses our outdoor facilities, both myself and my whole family, I really appreciate the recommendations that are in here. They all make a lot of sense, especially things like, you know, portable toilets available to everybody at all recreational department programs. And I don't know, there was a lot of things that made a whole lot of sense. And so I really just wanted to say that I appreciated the work, and I think it looks like a good plan. Thank you.
As Alder Posey noted, yeah, thanks to everyone providing feedback. Speaking of that, I just want to note to both the Plan Commission and city staff, there were a lot of comments about people wanting more sidewalks, better sidewalks. They want to be safe when they walk themselves or their dogs or with their kids. And I know, like I said earlier at the meeting, like there's a lot of stuff we have to retrofit, and it just wasn't built with sidewalks. And you know, it's just something we're gonna have to work on going forward. And I think it's important to the community, and the numbers in the survey completely bear that out. But yeah, I think the plan looks good, and be happy to vote in favor of recommending approval. But other questions or comments? Commissioner Tucker-Long.
Do we make a motion for this, or?
Yeah, so it would be a motion to adopt the resolution
Okay.
and then recommend to the Common Council.
Okay. So in that case, I would like to move that we make a resolution to adopt the comprehensive plan, the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan as an amendment to the City of Verona comprehensive plan, and recommend to the Common Council that they do that. Okay.
Motion by Commissioner Tucker-Long, and I will second it. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the resolution adopting and recommending the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan as an amendment to the City of Verona comprehensive plan signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes and will go before the council. Next, we'll move up to item 6, which is a public hearing regarding the review and adoption of an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan for 33.1 acres of 427 multifamily units, 1.4 acres of commercial, and 2 acres of parkland located at 7085 County Highway PD. Before we get into the public hearing, Mr. Sir, can you give us a brief overview?
Thank you. So this is for the Drager property. So if it's referred to as the Drager property, currently the Drager family continues to own that piece of land. Any comprehensive plan amendment, similar to what we did last time, does require a Class 1 public hearing notice. As part of that, that's published in the newspaper as well. This is the Planning Commission does adopt that resolution, but ultimately the Common Council is the one who has the final authority in the comprehensive plan amendment. So this would designate land approximately 33 acres for multifamily, approximately 1.4 acres for commercial, and then approximately 2 acres of land on this piece of property for a future parkland. Once again, this is kind of the recommendation. Even though you're adopting the resolution, it still is a recommendation to the Common Council, which would meet again next Monday night.
Thank you for that explanation. With that, I will move that we open the public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Lytle. All those in favor of opening the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the public hearing is open at 8:02 p.m.
Good evening. My name is Tony DeRosa with Fiduciary Real Estate Development. Address is 789 North Water Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53202. Real brief, we were here back in June, almost 6 months ago, with our concept plan that we share with you. A lot of good feedback at the time. The plan that's in the packet tonight, is a lot of changes made in response to that. For example, we shifted the commercial further east off the west property line to the east side of the new north-south public street that will cut through the site. There was a comment about shifting our clubhouse to be more central to the site. We were able to accommodate that. Our overall density was reduced by just under about 60 apartments in total. With those changes that we made, we shrunk some of the larger buildings and eliminated one in its totality. And then last month, we also met with the Park District about coming up with an area of approximately 2 acres at the west property line, adjacent to the Whispering Cove's future development. And we reached an agreement with the Park District in both area and location. So be happy to answer any questions. Thank you once again.
Thank you. We are still in the public hearing regarding the Drager property. So if anyone else wishes to speak on this one, now would be the time to do so. Seeing no one approaching the microphone, I will move that we close the public hearing on this topic. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Tucker Lund. All those in favor of closing the public hearing on this topic, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The public hearing is closed at 8:03 p.m. Mr. Sayre.
All right, thank you. Once again, the request tonight's for a comprehensive plan amendment for the Drager property. The property in question is highlighted in yellow on the screen before you. It's right across the street from University Ridge Golf Course, their main entrance on County Highway PD. The site plan that's on the screen before you also is what was the approved plans for the Whispering Coves development, which is currently under construction in this area. As the applicant kind of stated tonight, this was the kind of initial plan. This went to the Planning Commission about 6 months ago, back in September of, I believe, June of 2022. At that point, they had the commercial kind of in that northwest corner. You've got some very large stormwater ponds on the south side of the site. If you recall, this is a challenging area. This is, once again, is in that closed stormwater basin, which in essence, it's a bucket that fills up with no way of getting the water out. So it's a challenging area just because of the stormwater requirements up there that are imposed by the Regional Planning Commission, which is a back-to-back 100-year stormwater requirement to reduce flooding. So for any development in this area, you'll see some larger ponds on the property just for that reason. So this is the initial plan that came forward. Our neighborhood plan that we have in there for the North Neighborhood Plan shows commercial along County Highway PD. The dark brown color is potential multifamily housing. And then we also then have the yellow, which is that suburban residential, which is a typical single-family homes. So the applicant is looking at amending that to allow up to 427 units on this property. The area in the purple, we'll call it purple, bluish purple, that would be planned for multifamily. The area in red, it would be for commercial. They have shifted that commercial site over onto the east side of the property. This will help kind of buffer with the adjacent land uses. And then also the parkland that Tony had mentioned. There's a approximately 2-acre park that's planned there now too. The reason for that park was when Whispering Coves was developed, this was intended to be a school site, elementary school site, and with that school going away, there was a concern that schools are basically used almost as a park with the playground equipment, obviously, what's on there. With that going away, there was a concern of just, where is the active field space, where are kids going to be able to play here? So as the park board looked at the plan, they looked at obtaining 2 acres as part of dedication from this property, and then obtaining the other additional 2 acres from the west, from the Whispering Coves development. When that site is replatted, that site will need to be replatted to kind of replace the school there. We thought it was kind of a good, I don't want to say compromise, but a good way of kind of splitting the difference of kind of what was intended up there versus kind of what we're kind of seeing play out here. So 4-acre park should give enough, space for playground equipment and possibly an active field as well. I've said it before, I'll say it again, we need more active fields in the city, so this does kind of help fulfill that need. From a staff level standpoint, we're open to this kind of change to the comprehensive plan. We have some commercial on County Highway PD. PD is not the strong commercial backbone of this area. You have obviously different daytime demands of traffic, just on kind of, especially with what's going on the west side of the city. So, and this obviously has the more of the consistent traffic flow, which is also shown by the 6 lanes as you get north of County Highway PD as well. So looking at more of a smaller, neighborhood type commercial scale development here, we felt that could be appropriate. And then looking at the multifamily development as well, obviously with the stormwater constraints in the property, potentially could work on this as well too. If buses were ever expanded in this area in the future, obviously this area makes sense as a convenient, having a bus stop here at some point, whether in this neighborhood or in this general vicinity. So it is worthwhile to look at some higher densities in this area, just because you're on a County Highway PD, that's a 4-lane road, and it lends itself potentially to future transit needs as to the options in the future. So that staff does recommend, the Planning Commission recommend to the Common Council approval of the comprehensive plan amendment to allow approximately 33.1 acres to be designated as multifamily with up to 427 multifamily units. Approximately 1.4 acres would be designated as commercial, and approximately 2 acres would be designated as parkland. Obviously, if this is approved, there's a whole series of other approvals that would be required as part of this, including annexation, site plan approval, zoning, et cetera. So this is kind of the initial steps in the process here, but this does give the applicant some certainty of knowing that they have the ability to continue to move forward with this, or not moving forward as well too. So that's part of the reason why we're here tonight. We took a similar approach with the West Madison Bible Church property as well, as looking at their comprehensive plan first and then moving forward with the project as well. But I'd be happy to answer any questions about this.
Commissioner Wood and then myself.
I just really have one question, just to make sure that I'm not totally wrong. So in the green there, where it has the SF7, the T7, those are being removed, correct?
To be modified, yes. This plan would take some modifications, so those would go away, and that would be a park area.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure I understood that.
They went to Park Board a couple weeks ago, 2-3, I don't know the date, 2-3 weeks ago, and we had some of these submittals already in place. So what they did was just kind of shaded over that area to not have to resubmit and redo everything. It was just, let's cover that up and shade it. And the details of where the buildings are placed ultimately is going to change as they potentially change as they move forward here. So that's a detail that'll be worked out.
Thank you for clarifying.
I have another clarification about the parkland. So that the stuff in green is all public, right?
It'd be dedicated to the public, so it'd be dedicated to the city as part of the planning process.
Gotcha. And I read in the packet that there would be private park space. Where is that? Just for curiosity's sake.
There is a, I know there's a green space next to the clubhouse here. I think they were contemplating some potential kind of green space in these areas as well too. I wouldn't, I think it's going to depend on how it lays out in the site plan, but those are the two kind of larger ones that are on the property. You also have some green kind of between buildings A1 and A2.
Gotcha. Thank you. Other questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Henkard.
Things change these days a lot, right? So do we have any guarantee? You said, Adam, you just said this is going to change. That's fine, small changes I get. But if we approve what we're being asked to approve here, and then they come back and the density goes up and all of this, is there any, do we have any, I don't know if guarantee is the word, but that, for if I'm asked to kind of make this approval based on this preliminary plan, I just would like some assurance that it's not going to be wildly different when it comes back. And then everyone's like, oh, well, we're already down the road, so, we got to keep going.
So if you approve this tonight, you're not approving any of the buildings on there. You could basically take this picture and wipe every detail off it except for the colors and the acreages on there. That's what you're approving. You're approving, in essence, what you're approving is that in different colors. So as part of these, we'll come back and this will get modified and you'll see a little red square somewhere up here, and then you'll see this a green kind of blob there, and that's what you're approving. Could they come back and say we want to do I'm making numbers up here, 700 units. I mean, they could come back and do that. So, I mean, ultimately, the number that you've recognized tonight as part of the record here is 427 units. At that point, you could say, no, we looked at 427 at that point. We're comfortable with that. And maybe you're comfortable with 700, and there's a reason that, okay, we could consider that. But in essence, you're capping this right now at 427. Could they come back with something drastically different where the road coming off of your ridge swings hard to the right? Yeah, possibly. I mean, that could be reasonable. But you're not approving anything in this site plan tonight. You're just approving 33 acres of multifamily, 1.4 acres of commercial, 2 acres of parkland with up to 427 units. The details behind that are going to change probably with stormwater and everything else. So
Okay.
you've got flexibility.
That's great, thank you. Like, but for example, I believe there was a comment, maybe it was mine or someone else's, that they try to do a better job at mating with the single family to the south. And you just said that they did that by sliding the ponds down. That's great. If they come back and the ponds are somewhere else, I'm not going to be pleased. That's all I'm saying. I want something that's at least similar to this when it comes back. Just because, we've seen a lot of changes, and I get it, the landscape out there is changing. It's hard to be a developer, perhaps, but I would like to, I just want to see something similar in terms of the numbers and the layout.
And I think comments like that, too, generally are good as well, because obviously the applicant's here tonight nodding his head. So, I mean, that's good, too, is that
I guess I should be like,
he's hearing it as well, too, of what the expectations are, at least from you, when he comes back, of what you're going to be looking for. So if there's other comments besides that, outside of, the comprehensive plan amendment, by all means, I'd say make them.
Commissioner Tucker-Long.
Yeah, I think it's great that the stormwater ponds have moved down. When this comes back, I would love to see diversity in the types of housing available, as far as, types of buildings, types of numbers of bedrooms, all that kinds of stuff. The more diverse we can make the housing and the more diverse we can make the buildings look, the better.
Other thoughts from the Planning Commission? Alder Posey, and then myself.
Overall, I think it's a good plan. I think my greatest concern, and kind of came up a little earlier, is a plan for the commercial. I know that we have a lot of commercial that is empty right now, and I think it is great to add commercial, and I think it's a good spot, but I want to know that we have a plan or some effort being put into getting a tenant or building something that has a purpose. And not just something that's going to sit as an empty storefront, but not necessarily that I need it soon, but since I've got you here, I'm going to say it out loud. So.
Calling on myself, yeah, I'm in favor of this. I think it looks good. I think, moving the commercial over integrates it better into the multifamily and potentially provides a buffer from single-family homes. Same thing about the stormwater ponds. And then the only thing I would have to add is that there was a comment made about potential connections from the north to south road, either bike ped stuff. I think it should be well integrated, so if people want to walk, they can. And of course, there'll be a road so people can drive. And then also I would like, it to potentially be considered to put a walking path around the stormwater ponds if it fits. It looks real tight in there, so there might not be space, but I do like it if our stormwater facilities can pull double duty and be recreational and, prevent people's homes from flooding. But yeah, I think this is good and I'm supportive of as it looks now. Other questions or comments? Or motions, I guess. Commissioner Tucker-Long.
I move that we recommend that the Common Council amend the comprehensive plan for this property with the following. Approximately 33.1 acres will be designated as multifamily with up to 427 multifamily units. B, approximately 1.4 acres will be designated as commercial, and C, approximately 2 acres will be designated as parkland.
Mr. Zaire?
And that also included adopting the resolution? Yes?
Yes, and also include us adopting the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Tucker-Long. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Posey. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, All those in favor of adopting and recommending to the Common Council to amend the comprehensive plan for the property in question with the conditions specified in the packet, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. We've already addressed item 7, so we'll move on to item 8, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the site plan review for 2 office buildings located at 1979 Milky Way. Mr. Sayre.
Thank you. EPIC's requesting approval to construct 2 office buildings on their campus at 1979 Milky Way. The 2 office buildings are labeled on the screen before you. They're called Creatures and Guilds. This would be 2 additional office buildings that would be added on to their existing campus floor. The buildings itself are intended to complement the existing buildings within that campus. I believe that's the Wizards Academy. So the designs of these buildings would complement what's there today. Materials, as typical with EPIC, they're using great high-quality materials. The buildings are unique, and they fit with the existing theme that's on the campus. There is a large parking structure that's already been built underneath this. Overall, the campus has sufficient amount of parking on the site, so staff has no concerns with parking on there. As with all site plan reviews, we did go through the specifics and general findings of facts, and we believe that it does meet the requirements to potentially approve these 2 additional office buildings. So with that, staff does recommend the Plan Commission approve the site plan for 2 additional office buildings called Creatures and Guilds located at 1979 Milky Way. I know the applicants are here tonight, and they'd be happy to answer any questions that I cannot answer.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments or motions? Commissioner Tucker-Long. Oh, Commissioner Lytle.
Just clarification for my curiosity. When you say that there's existing underground parking, you're not saying that we're building these buildings on top of underground parking. They're just nearby, so easily accessed?
Correct. Like similar to the rest of the campus, they'll connect into it. So there's sufficient parking underneath there. I don't believe they're on that structure, but they would have direct access right into that garage that's underneath that campus today.
Great.
Other comments? Commissioner Tucker-Long.
I move that we approve the site plan for 2 office buildings called Creatures and Guilds located at 1979 Milky Way.
I will second. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Commissioner Tucker-Long and then myself.
I just want to say I think the buildings look great, and I really appreciate that we don't have to push you to use high-quality building materials, so thank you.
Commissioner Tucker-Long took what I was going to say. Yeah, the buildings look really good. That's all. Other thoughts? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the site plan for 2 office buildings located at 1979 Milky Way, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next, we'll move on to item 9, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the annexation of 31.996 acres of land located east of County Highway M and south of County Highway PD. Mr. Sayre.
Thank you. The request tonight is to annex the West Madison Bible Church property and then also the former Wharton property located on County Highway PD, which is the entire area is outlined in white on the screen before you. This project is called the Avalon Ridge Development. This is a project that's been before the Planning Commission and Council. It was ultimately approved subject to annexation of the property. So it already has its approvals in place for a 502-unit apartment complex, and along with some commercial along in the front side of the project as well, too. So this is the formality of kind of bringing the property into the city now. The applicant has petitioned to both the city. They've also submitted the forms to the Department of Administration as well. As with all annexations, the Department of Administration does review these. I think the review has been finalized, and they didn't raise any significant issues with it. I think there was a legal description that was addressed by the surveyor, but they have not raised any significant issues as part of this annexation. Once this is annexed in the city, we typically do zone these rural agricultural agricultural. However, based on previous approvals, the property will be zoned immediately from RA to suburban commercial for that commercial piece in the front, urban residential for the multifamily use, and then also public institutional for the church use that will remain on the property. And those are already been in place from previous approvals as well. So it won't have the typical RA zoning to it, it'll have specific zoning to it if it's approved. Staff's comfortable with the annexation, it's consistent with the plans we approved on the property. And with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission recommend the Common Council to approve the request to annex approximately 31.996 acres of land into the city of Verona with one condition, that the annexation shall become effective upon execution of an annexation agreement. That annexation agreement, if the Plan Commission recommends for approval, will also go to the Common Council next Monday as well. That's an agreement that we've already worked out with the applicant, which is typical of most projects as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know the applicants would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Made it all the way to the end. Questions, comments, or motions on this item? Commissioner Lytle.
So one of the things I always try to understand is how we bring new land into the city without, really going through gymnastics as far as making it adjacent to existing city. And then there's a second question related to the property directly to the south of what's being annexed, and how that is or isn't creating a town island if this happens. I just wanted to understand that a little better.
Mr. Zay?
Yep, so it will connect along County Highway M, so we'll have a full connection there. As part of this, we are annexing the full width of that right-of-way. So we're not annexing any of the right-of-way in County Highway PD, and we take a very strategic look at these right-of-way annexations because it can create logistical nightmares for law enforcement and fire as well and responses. So it will connect in this location here down at Morningside Boulevard. Ultimately, at some point in the future, this property here will also develop in the city as well too. Oops, don't know what happened there. So that property to the west, which is right there now, would annex at some point into the city as well too. We do have the property to the south that you pointed out that potentially is going to create a town island. I think it is. We can create those as part of our boundary agreement. So our boundary agreement has identified this as Area A, which gives us the ability to annex into those. That property south of here, which is kind of that hashed area, that was intended to stay in the town. That was something we recognized as part of that boundary agreement, where the town said, we want to keep that in the town unless 80% of the people who own property there petition to annex the city. So we had the full ability to do that as part of our agreement.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Tagalong.
So if we move on this tonight and it's annexed in, what is the next step that we see this at?
Mr. Sayer?
I believe, I forget if final plat is left out there. I'm trying to think if there's anything left. Maybe final plat is left? That'd be the next step ultimately, if there's a final plat or any types of tweaks to the plan, if they had to come back here. But assuming there's a final plat, that might come back here, and then at that point, we'd be working on development agreements. I believe their intent is to start construction as soon as they can. Obviously, things could always change, but yeah, that you may not see it again. You might see construction equipment out there too. So it's going to move pretty quick here soon.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Tagalong.
I move that we recommend to the Common Council that they approve the request to annex approximately 31.996 acres of land to the city of Verona with the following condition: the annexation shall become effective upon execution of an annexation agreement.
Motion by Commissioner Tagalong. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Posey. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion. All those in favor of recommending to the Common Council to approve the request to annex approximately 31.996 acres of land to the city of Verona with the conditions specified in the packet, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next, we'll move on to item 10, which is reports and comments from the planning department. Mr. Zaire.
I don't have anything, except the next Plan Commission meeting will be on February 6th. That's the first Monday of February. Unless anyone has any questions for me.
Questions for Mr. Zaire? No. Commissioner Hankert.
When do those census numbers due?
2 years ago.
I don't know, Catherine's listening to this, so I mean, I asked Catherine to take a look again and see if she could reach out or look into it. So she'll probably text me in a minute with something saying to shut up, but well, that might have been it. But we're looking, that was a timely question. I think I asked her that last week, so we're looking into it.
Commissioner Tucker Long.
Hi, Catherine, we miss you.
Other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, which is adjournment. A motion to adjourn would be in order. Motion by Commissioner Hankert. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wood.
Take it if nobody wants it.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we're adjourned at 8:28 PM. Thank you, everyone.